It's been a week since the opt-in. We have no press release.
I do want to make one mention of my trip to Utah. We'll discuss a little bit later, but held on the campus of the University of Utah due to some renovations at the Delta Center. Alex Jensen, former Mavs assistant, Jazz assistant, among other places, a gracious host, got me some
Oh,
free
wow.
gear, baby.
Utes legend, most importantly. Congrats to Alex on his new
No,
gig.
no, not a legend. As I pointed out to him, a lot of retired numbers up there. His ain't up there.
Also, a guy I've known for over 20 years, Wes Wilcox,
Yes.
former GM of the Atlanta Hawks, former assistant GM of the Kings, is now the general manager of Utah, the Utes.
Wendy, you'll be happy to know that I had salmon in the hospitality room.
Lovely. They knew you were coming.
There you go.
Well, we should just start right there since Summer League has started. Okay, real quick. I don't mean to be a spoil sport. I've actually been known to be a spoil sport, but
True.
I don't want to be a spoil sport here. But before we get here, we talk about what 22 years of covering summer leagues has taught me, and I'm sure you two guys as well.
You haven't covered for 22 years because I haven't seen you one
You
in a
know
while.
what? That is actually correct. I haven't been there in about 6 years since pre-pandemic. You're right. But many years of summer leagues have taught me, and if you guys disagree with me, please step in. Number one, being good at summer league is less relevant than being bad at summer league.
Ding.
Okay. In other words, which by the way, sometimes you're good at summer league and it is an indicator that you're going to be a dynamic or impact player in the NBA.
Donovan Mitchell, one of the best examples of that. Donovan Mitchell went to summer league, had a giant summer league, and it was like, wow, this guy is something.
Right.
And then he showed up and was great from the jump.
And I will also say there are exceptions to the being bad thing. Like Trae Young had a terrible summer league and he's had a pretty good career.
Well, there's exceptions to every rule. But what I'm saying here is
being bad at summer league is not a death sentence either, but it means more if you're a high pick and you show up and you're not good.
Right. It tends to be more relevant to the fall when you play poorly at summer league than when you play well at summer league. Number two, if you're a sophomore or older, you really, really need to be dominating. Like you really need to put up good numbers. In fact, the baseline.
If you're not showing up and playing a couple games and being really good and stopping, that's usually not a great sign for your long-term future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not always, but usually.
Right. And third, while I understand that these teams were put together in the last week and they go through practices and there are things that happen in summer league that, these teams are coming together and they're trying to win, and a coach can sort of show off their like in-game ATO plays and all this kind of stuff. Winning summer league means 0.0.
Not a lot.
So doesn't mean that you can't have a nice July afternoon or evening taking in a summer league game. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't go to Vegas and have a great time over there. Doesn't mean that there isn't, value be taken out of it. Just be very careful at the play-by-play analysis that is done. That's all. Having said that, MacMahon, you attended the big game to kick off the Utah Summer League that featured Ace Bailey of the hometown Utah Jazz going up against VJ Edgecombe, the number 3 overall pick of the 76ers. What did you learn from that experience?
Well, I learned that VJ Edgecombe with NBA spacing can get to his spots with relative ease. Didn't have the best shooting night, 1 of 7 from 3, but he got up 27 shots and knocked down 13 of them. And man, does that guy got a turbo button, which you knew. But he didn't have a great year at Baylor. The spacing was awful. He's playing in traffic the whole year. Him and with some space and the open floor especially is fun to watch. Ace Bailey, let's start with the positives. He was there. right?
Yeah.
There was no drama. There were
Right.
no like indications of discontent or attitude. Like,
He was smiling. The Jazz media reported,
Ace Bailey,
he's smiling.
we should point out, Ace Bailey has always been known to be a very high energy, positive guy. It's not like he was some malcontent guy. I mean, that was a weird situation for a variety of reasons, but nobody ever was like wondering if the guy was going to show up and be,
and
miserable
he's
to deal
been,
with.
yeah, I talked to a lot of people with the Jazz, including Will Hardy. And, Will said, hey, every bit of feedback that he's gotten from the time he showed up, went, Will met him at the plane. Ace wanted to get right to the facility, get some shots up, 4 days of practice. All the feedback's been good. He had some defensive plays that were impressive. Some rebounding, had a clutch rebound that sealed it after sitting 6 minutes of crunch time, by the way, which was interesting. And that's not why he was the fifth overall pick in the draft. That's not why he was projected at one point to be a top 3 pick. He was projected there because the guy's supposed to be a potentially, big time scorer. And you didn't see a whole lot of that. 8 points, 3 of 13. Not going to overreact to an 18-year-old kid's summer league opener. I think that one really good thing about Ace Bailey is he can get his shot up whenever he wants to. Also, one bad thing about Ace Bailey is he can get his shot up whenever he wants to. And there are times where it's like, and Scott Morrison, friend of the pod, a defender of all Canadians, a guy who really did not like me saying that Shea was the weak link of the Oklahoma City Thunder defense, which I meant as a kind of a backhanded
You
compliment.
stand by that statement, I believe.
I do. And Shea will be the first to tell you, but I've been chastised by Scott Morrison, Jazz assistant,
Former Celtic assistant, very good dude.
Utah
Scott
Summer
Morrison.
League coach and proud Canadian. I've been chastised by him. But anyways, he pointed out like they can do a better job getting him involved. It's an interesting situation. There's a lot of guys that are on the Jazz roster that are playing for their Summer League team. Cody Williams, by the way, also sat out all of crunch time. But it's not like Ace wasn't a featured attraction necessarily offensively. They weren't like it. They weren't. Scott said they could do a better job of getting him more involved offensively, and then maybe he could do a little bit better job on shot selection. But those two things kind of go hand in hand. But again, they were choosing to emphasize the positive of the effort, the athleticism, the length defensively, his ability to cover a lot of ground defensively, to close out, to be able to help and close out big distances, his willingness and ability to rebound, those kind of things. And as Will told me, he says that stuff doesn't get talked about enough with him, and the offense will come as he learns a new system and new people and all those kind of things.
Yeah, he's a guy that's going to probably drive Will insane at times this year with his shot selection and the shots he'll take. But that's fine. That's the whole point. It's why Utah is such a good fit for him. They have plenty of shots for him to get. They got plenty of playing time for him to have. That's exactly the kind of situation he needed to go to, a place where he can grow into his game, grow through the mistakes, play for a great coach. I do think, he's obviously got a lot of upside. I do think that's going to be as good a situation as it could have been for him. And it was good to see him out there playing. And all I'll say on VJ Edgecombe is Chris DeMarco, another friend of the pod, coached the Bahamian national team the last several years, coached them in some international tournaments last summer. And VJ was playing with Eric Gordon and DeAndre Ayton and several other NBA players.
They were a win away from being in the Olympics. And
that's right.
Beat Argentina. He was their best player.
Yes, beat Argentina. We're in a competitive game in Spain with Spain. And VJ was, as you said, MacMahon, he was at times their best player and was really good. And Chris came away from that experience just last summer. I talked to him when they beat Argentina, raving about how impressive he was. So, yeah, I mean, he's he's got big time athleticism. You could see it in that game. And obviously he's another guy who's got some growing pains to go through, but the idea of him and Tyrese Maxey long-term in the backcourt together is pretty interesting for the Sixers.
I mean, Edgecombe, just like you watch him, and he is a wow athlete. Like I said, the turbo button, the leaping ability, it just felt like, I mean, he got up 27 shots, and there weren't a lot where you're like, ooh, that he forced that one. Like he was just getting the spots. Yeah, 10 rebounds. He is a high level athlete. Like he might be a top 10 athlete in the league when he steps on the floor.
We should point out too, one new piece of news that just came in is that the Bucks re-signed Ryan Rollins, young guard, a 3-year, $12 million deal according to Shams. I like that deal for Milwaukee. It's going to go under the radar because he didn't play a ton last year, but he's a pretty interesting young player, and he might end up starting for them based off depending on what their roster looks like. So I like that move for the Bucks.
Right.
I would be remiss to talk about the Utah Summer League, which is pretty much 2 days old of their 3 days, without mentioning Dalton Connect or just the Lakers in general.
Well, they're not in the Utah Summer League, so that would probably not be a good idea.
That would be the Sacramento Summer League. That's right.
Yeah, I think it's called the California Summer League, and it's in San Francisco.
We'll get there in a second. Jackson just had a nice little stat addition here. VJ Edgecombe, 4th top 5 pick to have a 25-point, 10-rebound game at Summer League since 2017. The others? Are you guys looking at this, or do you want to guess?
Yeah, I see it, but go ahead.
I didn't see it. Who are they?
Wemby, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum.
That's a pretty good list.
So no guarantees, but not bad company to be in. Also saw, well, there's one other thing I want to mention with the Ace Bailey situation. There were some eyebrows raised when it was revealed that Omar Cooper Jr. would be a guest coach for the Utah Jazz during Summer League. His dad, Omar Sr., is I'm going to say advisor, because I don't believe he's officially an agent, but the guy who's been advising Ace Bailey throughout the last couple of years, including a pretty messy pre-draft process, I would say. So again, there were some eyebrows raised there. It was an unpaid deal. And Omar Jr. did just wrap up his college career at McNeese State. He's going to go into coaching. I was told he'll be on Will Wade's staff at North Carolina State next year. But some of those eyebrows that were raised were at the league office. They reached out to the Jazz and raised some concerns. And the unpaid internship, I guess you could say, was ended before Summer League started.
I actually didn't know that was the outcome. So good reporting by you.
Well, thanks for reading.
I read McMahon's story today. I guess somebody didn't.
I did not. What do you want me to say? It was July 4th weekend.
He was too busy hobnobbing with the Omaha mayor.
He sure was.
I thought the Lakers were in the Utah Summer League. That's where I'm at.
In the Utah Summer League and then the Sacramento Summer League, that's in San Francisco. We're on top of it today.
I did see Nikola Topic play basketball.
All right, so Nikola Topic was the lottery pick by the Oklahoma City Thunder in the 2024 draft. He is a Serbian teenager, regarded as the best European prospect last year. Had a torn ACL that he suffered during the season playing for his Serbian professional team. So he skipped this whole year recovering from that. And so he played his first basketball in a long time, over a year, I believe. And so that's the backstory. This, during this year, they didn't have room really to play another young guy anyway. So they were able to take a flyer on a guy who sank in the draft a little bit. If he had been healthy, there's a decent, there were times where he was projected as a top 5 pick. Now, I don't know if he would have gone there, but I think the Thunder had like the 13th or 14th pick. They took him right at the back of the lottery. 12th pick. Okay.
12th pick. And, 14 points, 4 assists, 7 turnovers. Like his stat line won't wow you, but you see why he was a lottery pick. Like he's 6'6" and smooth, can kind of get where he wants to go. Again, the turnovers, I don't sweat those too much in a summer league situation. I don't know that there's going to be any minutes for him, but you see why people were so high on him, in the draft and especially before he had the knee injury. And he's Dagenhall had mentioned during the finals that he hadn't played 5-on-5 yet. So he's like very, very fresh back into, scrimmaging and now summer league, into 5-on-5 action.
He also walked out there and was being guarded from the jump by a guy who finished third rookie of the year last year in Jalen Wells, who was good to see back on the court after his injury at the end of the regular season. And that's not an easy way to walk back into 5-on-5 for the first time in about 15 months, I would say, either.
But a good test.
Very good test.
All right. So in San Francisco, Lakers have played 2 games so far. And Dalton Connect is, I believe, 5 of 22 in those 2 games. For 5 of 20. 5 of 20 in those 2 games. So I didn't watch him. I'm just telling you the stats. So I couldn't tell you. Jackson was very excited to tell us about Cole Swider, former Laker. Who else did he play for? He played for the Raptors.
Played for Miami. He's played for a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
Jackson probably knows all the teams by heart.
He averaged 22 points and shot 63% on threes these first 2 games. And Bronny James played one of the games, only played 10 minutes and went 3 of 7, had 2 rebounds and a steal. So scored 10 points, hit 2 threes.
Yeah, Connect 0-9 from 3-point range. I'm not going to overreact too much to a summer league, but for a sophomore who got a decent amount of playing time as a rookie, he's certainly not passing the second summer league domination test.
Well, the thing about Connect, actions over words, the Lakers have already traded him once. All right, so that's number one. The second thing is, as the season went along, JJ Redick stopped playing him.
Yeah.
And look, he's a rookie. I'm not, lots of rookies have struggled to get playing time early in their careers. But there was a time where people thought this was one of the steals of the draft.
I mean, LeBron was mocking all the GMs who passed on him early in the season.
That's correct. Yeah. Which again, I'm all fine for a star player praising his teammate. That's totally fine. I'm not going to judge that. But for all I know, he'll hit his next 12 threes. But I just, am monitoring that development, especially since, there's a chance he could be traded again, depending on what the Lakers want to do with their roster. So,
this was not a weekend where his value was boosted.
Exactly. I think that's exactly the point. So, I just got another Lakers release.
Oh, great. What's it say about LeBron?
Nothing.
Oh, damn.
Not mentioned. We'll keep waiting.
What's this one on?
This is another release about their...
They signed their second-round pick. They traded for their second-round pick earlier. They signed him now.
Now they've signed him.
Oh, great.
He got 2 releases today.
Wow.
There will not be a release about the player option, just so people know, as we've talked about before, because teams don't do that. However, hold on. That does not preclude Rob Pelinka from putting out a statement about all this and ending all this. So I'd like to see it. It'd be great. I'm waiting for it too.
Wow.
Hey, LeBron's playing golf. Been a lot of coverage of that.
I saw that. He was back in Ohio this week. I was trying to figure, I think I know what course he was playing, but
of course you do.
I will say that I saw him play golf when he was with the Heat. The Heat had a golf thing, and it was horrific. He has gotten markedly better in the last decade as a golfer.
I will
You can afford lessons, I think.
Yeah, I'll acknowledge that I've never played a hole of golf outside of putt-putt. I have done Top Golf a couple times. If I go back, I'm gonna try left-handed.
It's a shame because you could probably absolutely freaking move it off the tee with your body
Well,
type.
I'm a righty, but I did hit lefty in baseball, so maybe there's hope. But right-handed, it like there's swinging and missing going on. It's not good.
Well, it happens. I'm just telling you, it's, if you'd chosen golf instead of basketball, you might have been able to do something with your sports career.
Oh, you mean I didn't? I didn't do something with it?
What am I going to say? What am I going to say? I'm just telling you, you could have hit it probably a ton. You probably could have absolutely routinely hit it 325.
Based on my limited golf experience, I don't think I had a whole lot of potential.
All right. Well, that's your opinion. All right. So today was the first day of the new league year, and there was dozens of transactions that were all lined up. They're still happening. But I will just say, as we're recording this, approaching 11 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night, doesn't mean that it won't happen tonight, doesn't mean whatever. But unless you guys have seen a release that I haven't seen or seen official data from the league, but I don't think the Jonas Valanciunas, Dario Saric trade has actually happened yet.
I don't believe that is among the transactions that have been announced yet, though. That doesn't mean much because as it isn't technically the first day of the league year. That was a week ago, but it's the first day that the moratorium is over, so
You're right.
transactions can happen.
You're
So
right.
like as Bobby jokingly put out a tweet this morning, it's like there are 10,000 planes lined up at the runway to leave all at the same time, and you have to wait for everyone to go. Like, for example, this, ridiculous 7-team trade that was attempted to be made into a thing by people this week. That began with the Kevin Durant trade, which was on game 7 of the finals, which feels like 7 lifetimes ago, but it was 2 weeks ago today. So you have a whole lot of stuff, including a lot of draft trades that all happened before you get to any free agency stuff and any trade stuff that happened. So
that's not necessarily, it's not done in chronological order. For example,
I just mean there's a million things they have to do. I don't mean the order.
Okay. Well, maybe it'll happen tonight, but I mean, it was my way of getting into talking about Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, Bontemps.
I suppose that
So let's just explain it to people.
We could get a release in the next 60 seconds that trade went through, but it hasn't come through as of almost 11 p.m. on Sunday night. And so there was this unique thing. And before we get into this, we are talking about a backup player here. No offense to Jonas, who I have respect for guys who dominate international basketball, which he has.
Well, and he's been a starter for a long time in the league.
He's had a great career. I would also, well, we'll get into this, I guess. I have thoughts on the actual impact he's going to have on the Nuggets, but that's another thing.
All right, but what I'm saying is we're not talking about transformational part of the league here, as we have a non-LeBron James Giannis Antetokounmpo podcast on July 6th. Okay,
sure, but we're talking about the biggest hole in the Nuggets roster for Joker's entire career.
It is interesting that Jonas Valanciunas, within a day or two of being traded, which presumably the Kings didn't know he was thinking about leaving the NBA, or the Nuggets didn't know he was leaving the NBA. Maybe they did, but I would be surprised. He is linked by multiple reports in Europe to be interested in an offer for Panathinaikos, which is one of the large powerhouse teams in the EuroLeague. Olympiakos and Panathinaikos are the two Greek legacy teams.
What, you know pronunciation, Bontemps? Is that what
it just reminds me. It wasn't correct, but it reminded me of when MacMahon gave a swing at this on TV last week. Which
no, it wasn't on TV. It was on.
That's right. It was on the call. That's right.
Well, I forgot. I said like Panathinaikos.
It wasn't Panathinaikos, which is what the team name is. But I enjoyed MacMahon's attempt. It was a game effort.
Anyway,
game effort.
So, in fact, I believe was even spotted in Athens.
He was. That is correct. Breathlessly.
So, the interesting thing about this is, of course, he's under contract for another year, and his contract next year is non-guaranteed. That's one way you could get him to make sure he stays in the NBA. You could guarantee next year's $10 million. I'm sure he would.
But let's spell it out though. It's not up to him. He can't break his contract. Like,
that's right. So
FIBA rules.
That's right. So these are the rules on it. So Brian and I wrote about this in our piece on Friday, but laid this out. So if you're a player like Jonas Valanciunas and you want to go play, you're under contract and you want to go play in Europe, you want to go to Panathinaikos and play. You can't just, to MacMahon's point, you can't just do that if you're under contract. So last year, Sasa Vezenkov, who was a former EuroLeague MVP, or one of the top players in Europe, he was on the Kings also, was traded to the Raptors. He let go the rest of the money on his deal. I believe he was owed $8 million. And he went back, I think, to play in Greece. I don't remember which team he went to play for. He was given a letter of clearance by the league saying, you can go back and play. It's okay. The Raptors were cool with him leaving. They took the money back, and then he left. So if you're for Jonas Valanciunas, you can sign any agreement you want with Panathinaikos. You can go, hey, I want to go play for you guys. But to do that, the team has to say it's cool for him to leave. And then the NBA has to say, you're under contract, but we're clearing you from that so you can go back to Europe and play.
By the way, it's the same goes the other way around. If you are playing for Real Madrid and you want to sign with the Nuggets, you got to get a letter of clearance. And the way you get that usually is by the NBA team sending money over there.
Yeah, that's why.
Right, or the deal has a buyout in it, and it's negotiated. Like last year, that's what happened with Gershon Yabusele, who we'll probably talk about later. He was playing for Real Madrid, and he agreed to a buyout so he could get out of his deal and go sign with the Sixers after he played well in the Olympics.
Right. So, but the Nuggets, at least ostensibly, were counting on, part of the reason that the Nuggets were getting such high praise for their offseason was because they were able to acquire a well-regarded backup center. And maybe he's not going to the Hall of Fame, but it's certainly a better regarded backup center. Is it the best backup he's had since?
Dude, it's the best backup of Joker's career.
What about when Jusuf Nurkic was there?
The best backup of Joker's career, and also
he's not as good as Nurkic was then.
Dude,
DeAndre Jordan
in recent years.
Here was the problem. Nurkic was miserable and made everybody else miserable because Nurkic thought he was.
You're totally disregarding DeAndre Jordan, but okay.
Man's favorite player.
I am.
All right. Anyway, so the Nuggets have their new backcourt, and I was told that and Mr. Jokic has not spoken on the record, at least in English, about this that I've seen, but I was told through secondhand that Jokic was very pleased with the Nuggets moves.
Yeah.
So
they brought back his guy, Bruce Brown, huge piece of the championship team. Yeah. Hardaway's a nice shooter for the bench. And then, this like Valanciunas isn't an all-star, but he averaged 10 and 8 and 19 minutes last year. Like, he can give them 4
he is
a game.
absolutely.
I do think
he's an elite offensive rebounder. He has been.
I do think it's very strange that they went out and traded went $400,000 into the tax, A, and B, traded for a guy who has no hope of being on the court in the playoffs. Like, it's kind of a problem.
I don't think that's fair.
Here's the problem.
No hope, but I do think that you don't look at him as being a guy who is play 8 and trust 7. I'm not sure he's in your trust 7.
That's my point.
Bontemps. Here's the thing. They don't need the backup center in the playoffs because Joker plays 40 minutes and the other 8, Aaron Gordon shifts to the 5. What they need is for Joker to be fresh and not completely worn out by the time the playoffs start.
Yes, I understand.
You need a guy who can eat 14 to 16 minutes a night and they're not bleeding points like they've done Joker's entire career.
Yes,
I am their biggest regular season rotation problem.
I am aware of that. I just find the combination of going $400,000 into the tax for a team that ostensibly did not want to be in the tax and getting a guy who is not, to me, going to make much of a difference, if any, in the playoffs, an interesting combination. I'm just going to leave that here.
You said ostensibly twice. That's a once a pod max word. Okay. And second of all, you've about their depth for years now. They address it and you about their depth.
I still don't. I'm not sure they actually got much better.
Well, I will say this:
Jokic sort of what I'm hinting at.
Jokic played 37 minutes in the regular season this last year. It's the most he's played in his career.
Yeah.
So,
and he had to sit late in the season because he was just beat the hell up.
So that trend has to reverse. Now, let me just say this. If they do agree to a buyout, and Valanciunas does go to Europe, they would not only get out of the tax, yes, they would get access to their mid-level.
Well, the part of this that we're leaving out, they would also get rid of Dario Saric, who is absolutely not at this point an NBA player, and they would have got him off their books for free.
Well, so here's the thing. I have not spoken to anybody about this, but I've seen extensive reporting that this trade is going through no matter what. So you may ask yourself the question, well, why would this trade go through? If Denver wasn't sure about this deal, why would this trade go through? And in the case of the Nuggets, they're getting rid of Dario Saric, who did not have a role in their team last year, who's guaranteed $5 million this year.
And they're saving $5 million for free in that case.
Right. And if you're the Kings, you're trading a $10 million player for a $5 million player. So you're saving money too. And they've even been linked to be apparently trying to retrade Saric already in other deals.
Well, and they needed that money to be able to sign Schroeder. So, the flexibility that created allowed them to sign Schroeder, which has been their biggest move of the offseason. But as Shams reported today, the Nuggets have informed Valanciunas' reps that the franchise fully expects him to honor his contract. They are not planning to buy him out. They're not planning to let him out. They're not planning to have anything but Valanciunas be Joker's backup center. Now, there has been speculation. It's not information. It's been speculation. Hey, with what you're talking about, are the Nuggets lurking? Why isn't Horford signed? Why hasn't Horford gone to the Warriors yet? Could he land in Denver? But all indications right now are that the Nuggets are saying, hey, buddy, you're under contract with us and we need you. So we'll see you at training camp. To Valanciunas, to be clear.